Don't mind. Since I do work in humans, and you're all humans, well, we didn't do any screening, but I'm pretty much sure you are. If you feel able to, I'd suggest you maybe just stand up for me if you can do so, or if not, because you've been sitting for quite a while. And just maybe move your arms and legs around a little bit, because we're going to talk about that in a second. So yeah, just maybe give yourself a little shake. I suppose there's a song that goes with it, but I don't sing very well, so I'll spare you. So once you, perfect, thank you. Once you feel like you've loosened up just a little bit, I'll get you to sit down again and we'll carry on with what I want to say. So I want to tell you a couple of some stories related. I'm going to finish up the little story I'm going to tell with the work we do here. But I'm going to sort of, not sure what a reverse segue is, but what do you call that? I guess I'm going to hearken back to a little bit around the story Chris told us. I want to give you a little personal anecdote and then lead into the work that I do. And that is that stroke and heart disease have decimated my own family. I've killed both my parents, two of my uncles, and my grandparents. And in fact, I've seen up close stroke while it's happening in my mom. When she came to visit us in Edmonton back in 2002 to visit her newest granddaughter. Wasn't feeling very well that day. Felt a little off, was going to stay home while we went off to a lab party. We were having a little party for a fellow that had come to the University of Alberta to work with me. He was from Australia, and we've been doing some work, and we're having a little summer's party. But my wife had to go home early with one of our girls, and I get this call at the party, you need to come home now. And I remember thinking, geez, we're trying to have a party here? We're having fun. And, no, you need to come home right now. So get home, she goes, Paul, I think your mom's had a stroke. And I said, well, always, no matter what your education, your background, you get something, well, maybe she's not. And he goes, say, Mom, how are you doing? And you just get zip, 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 zip. I'm like, pardon? And she had a little bit of a droop. And I thought, okay, we're off to the hospital. Now, I wanted to take her up to University Hospital in Edmonton, where I knew they had, at that point, a very preliminary TPA program. But the road was under construction and blocked off because of several other things. There was a festival going on in town. It would have taken about 45 minutes of detouring to get up there from where we lived. So I took her to another hospital instead, where they also, as it turned out, did have a TPA program. But we get there, and the first thing we experience is a very determined nurse trying to triage us to sit down. That, you don't have to worry, she's just off. I said, no, she's having a stroke. No, we'll get to you. He said, no, you won't get to us. We're going to see the attending neurologist, and we're going to go in and get a CT scan because she's having a stroke. And I guess I was not much shorter than I am now. So I was able to convince her that probably that was the easiest course of action, was to move along those lines. And so we did get in there, and we were at that crucial point where we were talking to the neurologist about, they did have access to TPA, and we were talking about one of the things my mom said. She talked about headache. And we weren't really sure what to do because of the potential catastrophic outcome, as Andrew alluded to, if you're administered TPA when you are having a hemorrhagic stroke. And we went back and forth, and the neurologist, I said, well, if this was your mom, what would you do? And he said, I would not give her TPA. So I said, okay, we'll ride it out. So in the hospital that night, I got to see my mom at the point where she was completely paralyzed down one side of her body, complete drop. She couldn't move anything or talk or probably understand things, although it turned out to be more of an expressive issue for her. I got to see her, instead of us leaving to come to, I was moving to come to Victoria that summer. We were moving here to take this job at UVic. And we postponed our arrival here by 3 months so my mom could do her outpatient and inpatient rehabilitation in Edmonton with some places we had her hooked up with. So there she was at night. You were talking about working, Chris, on things. Studying her letters and her letter blocks side by side with her 3-year-old granddaughter, my oldest daughter at the time, learning to print again, carefully, learning to read the stories about C, Dick, and Jane run, careful, careful, careful. She made a really great improvement and recovery before she was claimed by heart disease last year. But I got to see that up front and center, and one of the great ironies about that is that summer we had just been really engaged in my laboratory at the University of Alberta because some of the work we were trying to do was just now poised to turn towards stroke. And we'd just been funded by the Heart and Stroke Foundation for 3 years to pursue some of these projects. And then within the notification of that grant, 2 months later, I got to see a stroke right up front and center with my mom. So I had some ironies there, but I've really remained quite dedicated to some of the things we're trying to do that relate to rehabilitative interventions and the basic science we do in humans. So I'll tell you a little bit about that part now. So I start off on kind of a downer, but we'll end happier. So one of the things that I was really interested in when I was doing my doctoral training in neuroscience at the University of Alberta was I was really fascinated by how the human nervous system can do things like we're walking along and we go to trip up the stairs or slip on something, but if we don't trip, we sort of almost do, but we make this weird correction and we don't even notice it and we carry on. I was really interested in how that worked. And I got really interested in how that also might work or not work as well after stroke. And so some of the early projects I did even back in the late 90s were in stroke and walking. But one of the things I really got interested in was, well, how does this whole thing work when we walk around? Because we use our arms and legs typically when we're walking around, rhythmic patterns, we're moving arms and legs together. How do those work? I thought, well, I'll just go take a quick peek in the literature and find out what they know about arms. I'll put it together with what I know about legs. Bob's your uncle. Why is Bob your uncle? I don't know. But Bob is your uncle. I'm not sure who your aunt is. And couldn't find anything on arms. So we had to spend a decade, actually, searching down what the arms actually do during locomotion, how they relate to the legs. So I'm summarizing now in a couple of sentences about 25 scientific papers worth of work and literally a decade. So it doesn't sound like much when you put it that way, but let me tell you, there's a lot of work that went into this. What we were interested in is what exactly happens in the coordination between the arms and legs that we take for granted. How is that carried out in terms of mechanical interactions between our arms and our legs and neurological connections between our arms and legs? One of the things, I'll just grab my brain over here, I occasionally leave it out, and thank you, Chris. One of the things that we take for granted, but we make use of all the time, is the fact that we can do a lot of things that don't always make as much use of our brains as we think they do. Things like walking get regulated and initiated by commands from the brain, from places in the brain that are close to where Craig was talking earlier, related to those areas. But a lot of the basic work gets taken up by the spinal cord. So a lot of our projects are trying to say, what can we do to expand our ability to use what